Sign it. I'm not staying married to a broke, pregnant burden. The papers slid across the kitchen table and stopped in front of my swollen belly. My husband stood there with cold eyes. His mistress leaned against the counter behind him, one hand on his arm, smiling like she had already won. "Your dad's gone," he said. "There's nothing left for you now." I looked up at him and kept my voice steady. "You really believe that?" He laughed, a sharp, careless laugh, and that's when everything changed. "My name is Danielle Brooks. I'm 34 years old, and I was 8 months pregnant when my husband decided I was no longer worth keeping. I work as a middle school art teacher. I spend my days helping kids paint sunsets and shape clay into crooked little bowls. My job isn't glamorous. I don't wear designer clothes. I don't drive a luxury car. I drive a 10-year-old sedan that rattles when I started. I never cared. My father passed away 3 weeks before my husband threw those papers at me. To most people, my dad looked like a simple man who invested wisely and lived quietly. He wore old sweaters, he fixed his own fence, he never bragged about anything. But my father was not simple. He was careful, private, strategic. He used to tell me, "Money talks too loud. Let your character speak instead." I grew up in a home that valued humility. We didn't show off, we didn't announce what we had. My husband hated that. He used to complain that my family didn't look rich. He would say it like it was an insult. "You act like you're middle class," he once told me. "Why doesn't your dad ever invest in something flashy?" I would laugh it off. I loved my quiet life. I loved my classroom filled with paint stains and messy desks. But after my father died, something shifted in my husband. He expected a massive public announcement. He expected headlines. He expected me to suddenly become a walking bank account. When none of that happened, his attitude turned bitter. He stopped touching my stomach. He stopped asking about baby names. He started staying out late. I wasn't rich or glamorous. I never pretended to be. But I had something he didn't expect. And before I tell you what that was, let me say something to you. If you've ever been judged because people thought you had nothing to offer, I see you. If someone walked away because they believed you weren't worth it anymore, you're not alone. Subscribe and tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you believe quiet strength always wins, click hype. Now, let me tell you what really happened. 1 week after my father's funeral, my husband sat across from me at the kitchen table. The house still smelled faintly like the lilies from the service. That sweet, heavy scent made my stomach turn. "So," he said, folding his hands, "when do we see the numbers?" "What numbers?" I asked. "The inheritance. Don't play dumb." I took a breath. Dad handled everything privately. His jaw tightened. "You just don't want to share it." That was the first time I saw greed replace love in his eyes. A few nights later, I couldn't sleep. The baby was kicking hard and my back ached. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. He was in the shower. I don't know what pushed me, but I picked it up. The screen lit up with messages. "She's useless without Daddy's money. That pregnant look is not cute. Once the cash clears, you're out." My hands started shaking. The water in the shower kept running. I felt like the room had shrunk around me. When he came out, I held up the phone. He didn't deny it. "I'm moving out," he said flatly. "I already signed a lease." "With her?" "Yes." It felt like someone had punched the air out of my lungs. A few days later, his parents invited us to dinner. The dining room smelled like roast chicken and polished wood. I sat there in a loose dress, my belly tight and heavy. Halfway through the meal, he cleared his throat. "I refuse to raise a child in poverty. Danielle doesn't even know what she has. There's nothing there." His mother nodded. "A man needs security." I stared at my plate. The fork felt heavy in my hand. My face burned. No one defended me. Then he slid the divorce papers across the table. "Sign before the baby comes," he said. I didn't cry there. I waited until I was in my car. I gripped the steering wheel and sobbed until my chest hurt. The next morning, my phone rang. "Danielle?" A calm, older voice said. "This is Mr. Whitman. I handled your father's estate. We need to meet privately, as soon as possible." My heart slowed. Something in his tone told me this wasn't a simple conversation, and for the first time since the papers hit the table, I felt something other than pain. I felt curiosity. When I walked into Mr. Whitman's office, the smell of old books and polished wood filled the air. The walls were lined with dark shelves, stacked high with leather folders. It felt solid, safe. He stood to greet me. "Your father trusted me for over 30 years, he said gently, "and now I work for you." I blinked. "For me?" He motioned for me to sit. "Before we discuss that, I need to ask, has your husband filed for divorce?" "Yes," I said quietly, "and he froze our joint accounts." Mr. Whitman's eyebrows lifted slightly. "I see." That was betrayal number 1. 2 days after moving out, my husband locked me out of our shared account. I stood at the grocery store with a cart full of food, my card declining 3 times. People stared. I felt small. I had to put the groceries back one by one. When I called him, he said, "I need protection. You're emotional." Emotional? That word tasted bitter. He also told mutual friends I had spending problems, that I was unstable. I started getting strange texts. "Are you okay? Do you need financial help?" I realized he was building a story where I was reckless. Then came betrayal number 2. He started posting photos online with his mistress, smiling, holding hands, fancy restaurants. The caption read, "Finally free." Free from what? From me? From our child? One post said, "Some people try to trap you. Don't fall for it." I stared at the screen, my stomach tightening. The baby kicked as if he felt my anger. Comments flooded in. "So proud of you. You deserve better." They had no idea. The third betrayal hit harder. I received a notice from his lawyer. He was seeking primary custody. He claimed I could not provide financial stability. He included statements from his parents offering to testify. I sat at my kitchen table alone. The clock ticked loudly in the quiet house. Each tick felt like a countdown. I placed my hands over my belly. "I've got you," I whispered. That night, I didn't cry. Something inside me shifted. The sadness cooled into something steadier. I began meeting Mr. Whitman every week, quietly. No announcements, no drama. That was when he opened a file that changed everything. "Your father structured his estate differently," he said. "He believed privacy was protection." He turned a document toward me. My name was printed across the top. He created sealed trusts, multiple, domestic and international. They activate fully now. I stared at the numbers. They didn't make sense at first. Too many zeros. "Is this real?" I asked. "Yes," he said calmly. "Your father was far wealthier than most people understood, and he wanted you protected from exactly this kind of situation." Tears filled my eyes, but they were not weak tears. They were heavy with realization. He continued, "He once told me the loudest people rarely deserve the most." I almost laughed through my tears. That sounded just like Dad. Properties, investments, holdings, everything placed carefully in my name, shielded by legal structures. No public announcements, no flashy transfers. "He didn't want you judged for it," he said. "He wanted you secure." I leaned back in the chair. My husband had assumed there was nothing because he saw nothing. What they didn't know was that everything had already been decided long before my father's funeral. I had a plan they never saw coming. But timing would be everything. My husband, meanwhile, grew louder, more confident. He bought his mistress expensive jewelry. He posted about new beginnings. His parents told people I would crawl back once reality hit me. Reality was already here. They just didn't understand whose reality it was. Mr. Whitman adjusted his glasses one afternoon and said, "He filed quickly, too quickly. He assumed you had no assets. That assumption will matter." "How?" I asked. He gave a small smile. "Let him finish what he started." So I stopped arguing. I stopped responding to insults. When he texted, "You'll regret this," I simply wrote back, "We'll see." Inside, I was no longer shaking. The divorce settlement meeting was scheduled in a high-rise downtown. My husband thought it would be a formality. He believed he had already won. He had no idea he was walking into the wrong room. The law office sat on the 22nd floor. Glass walls, clean floors. The air smelled faintly like lemon polish. Everything felt sharp and precise. My husband arrived first, with his lawyer and his mistress. She wore a tight white suit and looked around like she owned the building. When I walked in with Mr. Whitman, my husband smirked. "You ready to settle this?" he asked. I nodded calmly. "I am." We sat across from each other at a long wooden table. My hands rested on my belly. The baby shifted gently, steady and strong. His lawyer spoke first. "Our client requests no spousal support and minimal child support. Mrs. Brooks has no significant assets." No significant assets. The words hung in the air. Mr. Whitman cleared his throat. He placed a thick, sealed envelope on the table. "I would like to submit additional documentation," he said evenly. My husband frowned. "What documentation?" Mr. Whitman slid the papers forward. "Activation of multiple trusts and holdings under Mrs. Brooks' sole ownership." The room went quiet. My husband laughed at first. "That's not funny." "It's not a joke," Mr. Whitman replied. He opened the folder. Page after page of financial statements, property deeds, international investment portfolios. My husband's face drained of color. His mistress leaned forward. "That's not possible," she whispered. "It is very possible," Mr. Whitman said, "and fully verified." Silence fell heavy over the room. I could hear the faint hum of the air conditioner. I could hear my own breathing. His lawyer flipped through the documents, eyes widening. "There must be some error," my husband said. His voice cracked. "There is no error," Mr. Whitman answered. "Furthermore, because you filed under false financial assumptions and attempted to conceal joint account movements, you have forfeited certain claims." "What?" my husband snapped. Mr. Whitman's voice stayed calm. "You froze shared assets without legal standing. That action will be reviewed." I watched it happen. The confidence leaving his body, the arrogance shrinking. He turned to me. "Danielle, we can fix this." I looked at him steadily, cold, clear. "You said I had nothing." His mouth opened, but no words came out. The lawyer continued reviewing the documents. "Given these holdings, Mrs. Brooks holds primary financial stability. Custody arguments based on income will not stand." His mistress leaned back slowly, her expression changing from pride to calculation. "You lied to me," she hissed at him. He ignored her. He kept staring at me. I felt no anger then, just certainty. Mr. Whitman concluded, "All protections for Mrs. Brooks and her child are active. The estate remains separate property." The meeting ended quickly after that. There was nothing left for them to demand. As we stood to leave, my husband reached for my arm. "Please, I didn't know." I stepped back. "You didn't care to know," I said quietly. The elevator doors closed between us. A month later, I moved into one of my father's private properties. It sat on quiet land, surrounded by tall trees. The air smelled like fresh grass and rain. It was peaceful. I set up a small nursery by the window, soft yellow walls, a rocking chair in the corner. My husband tried to call, tried to apologize. He said he made a mistake. I didn't answer. The mistress disappeared once she understood there would be no quick fortune. His parents stopped calling too. The house grew quiet in a different way, not lonely, just calm. When my son was born, I held him close and felt something stronger than wealth. I felt strength earned. Money was never the real victory. Respecting myself was. He divorced a woman he thought was nothing. He lost the woman who had everything. If someone ever left you because they thought you didn't have enough money, you understand this pain. If you've been underestimated because people misjudged your worth, share your story in the comments. I want to hear how you handled it. Subscribe if you believe quiet strength always wins. Click Hype to help this story reach others who need it. Your story has power. If you felt a connection to mine, please subscribe and share your journey in the comments. Every hype you give this video helps empower someone else. Thank you for being here and for listening.